Why do you say that, Father? You aren't afraid, are you?
No, but I respect some of the superstitions of others. Often they are founded in fact.
Broadcasting live from our Sanctum Sanctorum in bountiful Bakersfield, California. This is the Sixth Sense Society. I'm your host, Krista, here with our producer, Michael. And today we are excited to have on the show Natasha Senkovich. She is an old friend of ours. We've known her for actually many years. And she describes herself as a manifesting coach, performing artist, filmmaker, intuitive tarot reader, theta and pranic healing practitioner, who helps entrepreneurs, healers, and artists eliminate blocks to their success, reach their goals, and live life on their own terms. And one way she does this is by helping them learn to do something called reality shifting. So I got very interested in that concept. It sounds very Art Bell-like too. I like that. So we're going to talk about that and her own experience and methods that she uses to help people. But before we get started, Michael has a few announcements.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to our show. It's really great to have all you guys here again. Next week, of course, we have Spell It Out, Krista's monthly segment. And not sure what your topic will be, but it will always be fascinating for sure. So join us for that. And we've got lots of great guests coming up next month also. So we have a wonderful new author we've met. We're going to have our friend Renee Starr back and at the end of the month and all kinds of great stuff. So get all the information on our website, sixthsensesociety.com, SXTH, all spelled out. While you're there, if you can afford to, please buy us a coffee on Ko-Fi. Helps us cover a little bit of our cost. And don't forget that our new book, Tarot Alchemy, A Kabbalah-Inspired Approach to Reading the Cards, is now available on Amazon. Search under books or look for our authors' pages. And thank you to those who have supported it and already purchased a copy. And we're hopefully looking forward to a book signing very soon in Bakersfield here if you're local as well. So, and if you can't get a copy through Amazon, get a hold of us if you want one, and we'll find a way to get it to you. So I'm not going to take up any more time. So with that, I'm going to kick it back to you guys. So take it away, Krista and Natasha.
Great. Thank you, Michael. And welcome, Natasha.
Hi. So thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me, Krista and Michael.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. It's really a lot of fun. I was just thinking about how we met you so long ago. And that one of the things I was always impressed by you as a person is you're very hardworking and determined. And whenever it seems like you'd get a curveball, you try to find a way to work with it. So to me, you would take initiative with whatever was going on in your life, with your career and, of course, your own spiritual journey. And so I know that you're the kind of person that actually does the work.
Oh, thank you. It's so nice to hear. Sometimes I have this little bit of an inner pusher, right? So to hear somebody say something, looking at me from the outside is really appreciated. Thank you.
Oh, sure. It's absolutely true. You're definitely a go-getter and also a very creative thinker. So I think that it's really interesting where you have come with all of that, looking at the body of work and all the things that you've learned along the way. And so I personally was just really kind of curious about this concept of reality shifting that was on your website, the course that you have, and we can talk about that some later too. But I like that kind of topic, generally speaking, because you can go sort of the metaphysical route with it a little bit and look at it philosophically. So my first question would be, what does that really mean for you? Because I think that can mean different things for different people.
Yeah. And if you bear with me, I'm going to kind of give you a little bit my process, how I connected the dots. So one of the ways I built my business was through doing summits. And I would seek people, do these kind of big extravaganzas, productions, interview a bunch of people on spiritual topics or sometimes a more niche topic. And one of the people that I interviewed, this is some years ago now, was Cynthia Sue Larson. Cynthia Sue Larson is a physicist and also, I think, a master of divinity and quite a metaphysician. And she works very hard on, I think, what she calls the Mandela effect, or what is known as the Mandela effect. So she has publications, she writes articles, she contributes to scientific journals on this topic, right? So she started opening my eyes to this phenomena that reality isn't quite as we think it is. And sometimes, even though, since I've kind of been sort of doing the thought process through it myself and observing it from a different perspective, I kind of see that the way our reality is designed, it wants to, even though if our reality shifts as a collective from one, train track to another, like that reality we're in is going to kind of like almost have program your mind. Don't look over there. You know what I mean? Just everything's fine. It's just as you thought it was, right? It kind of like convinces you that your reality is solid,
Hmm.
right? So she started opening my eyes that that's not the case, and I started kind of like going, whoa, this is kind of strange, but it resonates with me. What she's saying is truth, and I can kind of see it now. Um, and then I started, the other aha moment I had was, as you guys know, I love the tarot cards. Working at the Bodhi tree, I think alongside you guys was such a wonderful experience. And I've, have a bajillion decks and got a bajillion readings and really dug down into that stuff. Um, and I remember getting a reading, or, because I would do readings and I would, frequently go to Michael for readings. You guys are awesome with that. And I noticed that somebody read on a friend of mine I was having a conflict with. And I knew her personality, and there's something that happened between us. And I think it was kind of not looking good in terms of a conflict emerging. She didn't understand my point of view. I didn't understand her point of view. We were kind of butting heads. And I got a reading, and the reader told me, for you to change this trajectory, you need to do something different, which would be XYZ, right? So instead of coming at her and saying you're wrong, you need to approach her with, I understand your point of view. I get how you feel abandoned by me at this moment. And so which was unlike myself at that point in time, I was like, kind of like me, right? But I listened to her. I said, okay, I'm going to try it. And I really put that different, more compassionate hat on. I approached her and I said, look, I get how my actions, even though I'm thinking I'm doing the right thing, seem like I'm abandoning you. And it switched the reality. I could feel the shift of reality happening.
Mm.
So it's almost like you take, again, like the train tracks, you're going on this way and it's going to be like this, and then you're going to get in a fight, and now you're going to talk to your friend for a while, or the friendship might not recover, and suddenly you pull the lever, and suddenly it's like she's like, oh my gosh, thank you for understanding me, and of course I understand you, and we're hugging it out, right? It was like, and then I thought, um, this is so interesting. Like that was a very small thing, but it shifted like, and I think our reality like recalibrates to this new trajectory.
Mm.
So then I understood that the healing process, or what we call inner purification process, which I did a lot of study on, and I'll kind of like break it down a little bit, is a crucial component to reality shifting. So for most of us, right, because we live on this planet, right, and we have to pay our bills and survive, and we want to have good lives, right? We want to be able to, take care of people that we love and all that stuff. We think in the term of, how do I get from point A to point B? So we, in the more like metaphysical or spiritual world, we look at it as, how do I manifest this? How do I manifest this? How do I pull this into my reality, right? So that is really like, if you kind of like really break it down and dissect it, that is really how reality shifting came to be, right?
Mm.
If you really look at it in a practical way, because I know like people like Cynthia and a lot of these, they really enjoy just delving into the topic of studying these phenomena as Mandela effects and reality shifting.
Right.
My perspective is like, I want to, I want to leave like a ripple out of like the good things I've did for people, right?
Right.
I want like our reality and people I love reality and in further circles to benefit from this. So I'm going to look at it, how I ground this. How
Right.
do I make this like break it down into a process that people can use? And so in my interpretation and my perspective, reality shifting is like, what do you need to do? If you're on one trajectory and your thoughts and your habits and your actions and the way that you show up is attracting you're on these train tracks, how do you shift it? Right.
Hmm.
And the first thing that I found, which again really kind of comes together, was inner purification. So what happens, and I'm jumping all over the place because I really want to give you the whole picture. But in the work that I do, right, and the way how I put it into like different bullet points. So there's 4 aspects of reality shifting or manifesting, or however you want to call it. So one would be the prime one is just what I just mentioned, inner purification. So that's like the biggest, most important one. 2 would be energizing, healing, right? 3 would be the compass, your guide, and 4 would be the actual leap, your actual like final tweaks and how to like make that jump to your reality if you haven't already, if you need that push, right? So inner purification is the crucial one. It's the crucial one. So under that category, we have like the healing practices that I do of pranic healing, of theta healing, all those things of ancestral, healing, cord cutting, all that stuff. Now, why is that key? So if you look at someone's energy field, right? So a lot of us create thought forms over the course of our life. We create like thought forms, and if you can train to do it, or some people are just naturally clairvoyant, they can see that in a person's field, and they actually create a certain pattern. So you can, I know you guys are probably like all over this and this, but it's the same way that a certain frequency creates a certain pattern of a snowflake, the same way repeated frequencies of thought and emotions create certain thought forms, and they actually take a certain shape. So worry, perpetual chronic worry, takes a certain shape, and it's like right around the throat chakra area. Like anger, usually created around, it's got little spikies and stuff like that, is usually around the solar plexus, right? So they have their favorite spots that they reside in and stuff. And what happens if we feed those negative thought forms too much? They actually skew and affect and color our field. So let's say that you're walking around and and maybe, because of cultural habits, because that's how your parents thought, and you just adapted that, so you're chronically worried or you're chronically frustrated or whatever, and you have those thought forms in your field, and that's unbeknownst to you, right? You're walking around and you're like, oh, I saw The Secret, and I got myself a nice like manifesting book, and I really like it. And you're really working hard to manifest something, but you've got all this junk in your field. And so you're shooting out a signal to attract something, and it's skewed and warped, right, by all that junk in your field, right? And so you're not going to be able to, you're going to work really hard, and then you're not going to be able to pull it in maybe the way, it's going to be, again, controlled by your beliefs and your existing thought forms, right? You're going to pull in maybe a warped version of what you wanted, or you're not going to be able to sustain it, right? Because maybe, those thought forms and those beliefs, and that's a whole nother layer, don't really acknowledge or allow you to feel somehow safe having a lot of money or having a partner that loves you. All that's very highly uncomfortable for you. You haven't done the inner work, the inner purification to be able to receive it. So the number one important thing in reality shifting, and it's the most like not fun step that people don't like, right? They want to like, let's do manifesting, right? Like digging up where those traumas, those thought forms, those beliefs, identifying them, cleaning them out, facing them, feeling them. And that sometimes can take some time, but it's the most rewarding aspect of things. So now I find, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I think it is. This part is a really interesting, but also controversial part, the inner work. And from my own experience too, I don't know if you ever read The Nature of Personal Reality, Jane Roberts' book. But
I've heard of Jane Roberts.
She
I don't know if I
was the
remember.
first person I read that's talking about some of the things that you're talking about, how we have to find the underpinning belief or beliefs together. But she really was very upset, or Seth, the entity, was upset that people thought that negative emotions were bad. And she said, no, the emotions are pointing to those beliefs, and the emotions come out of the thoughts, and that if you try to do what you just said, you said it in your own words, you just try to cover it up with something positive, she says you're going to get very bad results. And she says that all of our emotions are are natural. And what you also said was chronic, that chronic anger, that chronic anxiety, because I think I've met people that think you should never be angry and you should always be smiling. And I'm like, what if someone just came up and like slapped your kid? I mean, you're supposed to smile at them, like, yay. But it was the first time, I had read something that sort of was a little more complex with how do you work on those? And it is harder, what you were saying, to find those beliefs even. They're not all so straightforward. At least it has been for me. So I think that the first one is not only really important, but I think it's still, I guess, more nuanced than what people might say about inner work. And you're right, it is difficult. It is very difficult.
Yeah, it is easier to do it with a healer, right? I think it is possible to do it on your own, but it is easier to do it with a healer, someone who's objective. Sorry, you guys. So I have dogs.
It's all right.
One of them is the Chihuahua now wants to exit. I'll be right back.
Okay, sure. So she's going to go and take care of her Chihuahua who needs to exit right now. But yeah, I think the inner work is extremely important. And it's really something that you can also, I think, do in stages, that it's not something you have to sit down and do it all at once.
I'm back.
There you
Sorry.
go. That's all right.
We have 4 dogs and a couple of them are seniors. So there's all sorts of, stuff we do. I
do have a question for you from one of our viewers.
Yeah.
They say, isn't trying to manifest a form of clinging to agency instead of surrendering to what is? That's the question.
Yeah, I can see that point of view where, but I think as humans, right? I think that we do want, we're put down here to want to improve the life, that we have, right? Improve our lives, have an impact to people around us, and I think that's natural. I think that comes out of us, right? And I think that if we weren't, meant to be here and create and manifest, we wouldn't incarnate, right? We'd probably stay up there and attend classes up in the spiritual world or in the astral world and be fine with that. So we're here for a purpose. So part of the journey, I think it is that we have desires and we want to leave a mark and we want to see our creations manifest in the material world. So
yeah, that's a really good point. And then it also, I have found that the nature of desire is sometimes over demonized. That Kabbalah has taught me there are some very pure, good, healthy desires that we all have. And maybe they start off really well, but they, get sort of tainted down the way, because we're trying and doing something maybe incorrectly. But that in the spiritual world, sometimes desire is also taken out of context. And I think, like you, we're here to express things and to go after our passions, our true passions in life.
Yeah, so it is a journey of discovery and risk and all that stuff, adventure. And I do have a story about that. It's my own story, right? I when you guys knew me, right, I was auditioning and performing and I was super into belly dancing and I did really, really want to implement the law of attraction because I felt like in that constant wheel of trying to make it. There was a lot of competition, life in LA. I mean, it was easier back then, but it was still hard. It was still expensive and stuff, trying to keep all the balls up in the air. And so I did a lot of manifesting, right? I was like, okay, I'm going to really get a hold of this manifesting thing and push and manifest. And it did work for me to a certain extent, right? I did that whole, documentary that ended up being, produced and completed by Miles Copeland. And it was, really well received, especially in the belly dance world. I did a lot of stuff, but because I didn't deal with those inner beliefs, like I had a lot of junk, a lot of stuff I was carrying, right, of negative thinking and worry and beliefs that calibrated, again, totally subconscious, right, I was not comfortable having money. I didn't know how to handle money. A certain amount of money was threatening to me. So again, totally subconscious. I made a bunch of money, bought myself a condo, had this successful DVD, and then I went right into lawsuits. I went right into like foreclosure, I went right into bankruptcy, right? So again, like those beliefs were like really took me down, right? And it could have been avoided if I had a different set of beliefs, if I had a different set of like way of behaving and habits and stuff like that, or treating money, treating myself.
Mhm.
And and I think, those beliefs can be so powerful that, in my case, right, I didn't just go back to square one, like, okay, you're back to square one. No, I was now in debt, right? I was like in the worst situation. So it's really important, I think, to really look at it and say, what is my reality showing me? Am I constantly upset with people? I go outside and there's always somebody I'm mad at because they cut me off or they gave me the wrong coffee drink or or like these, that's showing a certain amount of conflict, right? That's being
Right.
reflected to in your reality. And and money, am I always like, because I was always overdrawn for some reason, or if I made a little extra cash, this is a big one, right? That for me, money was a big thing. If I made a little extra cash, there was an injection of cash, then something would happen. I'd park my car blocking someone's driveway and I get towed, and that extra cash would get like,
Ah,
I mean, almost reliably, right? There was this big expense that came in that just like took me down again, right? So I found ways to take away that money from myself because, somehow it wasn't safe to me, right? It didn't, and people carry all sorts of beliefs like, well, these rich people are just bad. These people that have money, they're just like, evil bajillionaires or whatever. And true or not, right? Like,
right.
it's not helping you, right, to have that or us to have those beliefs. So, an inquiry is really good. Like when I learned theta healing, they teach sort of a muscle testing technique where you know, it, it doesn't always work with everyone. We all have different polarities and stuff like that in our bodies, but I'll just give us a quick overview. You face north, right? You rub your kidneys a little bit. This is just because most of us are dehydrated and it kind of like helps you fake the body out that you're hydrated. Or you take a drink of water and you stand and you'll ask yourself a question or a couple of questions that perhaps that are true for you. For example, my name is Natasha, right?
Mhm.
And some people are very, very specific with that. They might even calibrate negatively. So negative calibration with that would be like if your body leans backward, even a
Ah.
few little millimeters, it still means
Mhm.
that's a no for you.
Mm.
So if that's indeed your name, but that's a no for you, you might then rephrase the question like, okay, in this lifetime, my name is Natasha, right? Some people really,
Wow.
they're very detailed that way.
Right.
Or, or maybe at birth they were named something else. Like it's really interesting what the
Hmm.
body retains. So you figure out that, okay, so I'm getting answers that I expect. And then you can ask yourself, or in form of a statement or question, for example, this is a popular one. I just did this with a client. It is safe for me to have XYZ money in my bank account. And then you keep going up, and you'll realize at one point the person's like, nope, no more than that.
Mm.
Right. And then you have to dig. You're like, okay, well, why? Why is that? And then a lot of times you can ask the person, like, well, what makes you feel uncomfortable? One lady immigrated from the Czech Republic, Prague, and she remembers as a child, like, um, I think there was like a political upheaval, and people with money were basically attacked by the government, or their money was frozen, or they were made to be enemies of the state. It was just a really weird, horrible thing.
Mm.
So she had like a little trauma at that time. So for her, above a certain amount of money was not safe for her. And this was something that she thought was long behind her,
Mhm.
right? But it was still showing up in her life. She wasn't allowing herself to make above a certain amount or keep it because like that was imprinted as unsafe at a very formative
Mm.
time in her life.
Right.
And a lot of us have these weird, quirky things, right?
Sure.
I noticed that when I was teaching little classes in LA, and I would always have like four students, and then work really hard marketing myself, had an extra person come in, and I'd be like, yay, it's starting to build, it's starting to grow. And then one person would drop off, and I'd be back to four people, and I couldn't figure it out. I'm like, okay, this is really frustrating. No matter how hard I work, right? And I went to my theta healer, and she, did her thing, and she says, "Oh, um, You worry like that, to you having a lot of people or more than four people seems unsafe because there might be somebody difficult or somebody who's going to try your patience or be a little cuckoo bananas, or you just don't feel like you have enough energy to sustain a larger class than that. So that was something, again, I was not aware
Oh,
of.
interesting. So I wanted to go back a little to the beginning
Yeah.
of the conversation about reality shifting. And I wanted to get your opinion on something I learned again from um, Jane Roberts. I only read two of her books too. So the one book just really made a big impression on me. But I tried out this exercise, and I had a significant result. But one of the other things I believe she said something like this was that when you shift your reality, like you're talking about, we have these filters, and then you're basically dropping some of the filters. And so sometimes with the shift, there was something there all along that would help you with whatever your problem was, but you never noticed it. And that's what happened in my situation. I won't go into it, but I thought, well, that's the idea, because we do need the filters, or we'd go crazy if we could, most of us, because we're not, enlightened. But the filters can be positive and negative. And that idea, if you shift your reality, are you also kind of opening up, expanding what she called were some sort of filters? What do you think about that idea? And is it, similar to what you're talking about?
Oh yeah, no, that's so dead on. And what a great way of putting it. Because yeah, we do have filters. And I think the first time I've heard of such a thing was like I think one of the lectures Wayne Dyer gave.
Hmm.
I think he was something he gave so many wonderful lectures. One of them he gave about that, and he said those people were always there. You just didn't see them.
Right.
Like, right. So yeah, that does happen. That's one of the ways that um that you're on the right track, right? Like
Right.
suddenly, because we're sending out signals all the time, right? We're sending out signals all the time. So we're either repelling what we want or we're pulling it in.
Hmm.
So, and it's fascinating to me how that works. Like when you're sending out, like when you clear out the field and you're sending out a nice strong signal, again, without attachment,
Hmm.
like that, like I really want it or I'm gonna die. You're like, that's not a good way to go, right? You want to be kind of in that natural, like, yeah,
Right.
it's good. Um, then those people show up, suddenly they're introduced to you, or they find their way to you, or they're like, oh, I was just thinking about you, da da da, and I just felt
Right.
like stuff like that happens.
Yeah, I
It's
love
really,
that. That's really true. We have another follow-up question from the same person. Isn't isn't reality shifting simply a change of focus of attention of the experiencer?
yeah, definitely, you know, definitely it's a focus because our focus, what we focus on is really powerful, right? Again, if you're able to see energy, when people have thoughts, you see those thoughts form in their field, right? Um, Pranic healing is all about like I actually when I'm taking dirty energy, what we call in pranic healing, from somebody's chakral area or a certain organ, I will actually visualize it and call it into my space and I will clean it out, you know. So focus is everything. However, again, uh, you want to be like you want to go through that that space of inner purification, because just thinking, if you have still like a lot of beliefs or um like if we let's go to relationships, for example. um if I notice this in a lot of my clients, like receiving love,
Hmm.
right, and devotion or affection for a lot of people is very uncomfortable. Like they'll even cringe or react badly when they receive a compliment. It's like it's so
Mm,
uncomfortable for them.
right.
So if you haven't cleaned that out and you're focusing on, that perfect romance, right? You still have to take that first step of cleaning out, discovering, eliminating all those blocks to calling in, your object of attention
So
to your
then
reality.
also, would you then, once you kind of clear out, you reestablish the new belief somehow? Like if I find a belief that is drawing in, like I'm not worthy, that seems to be a common one.
Yeah.
And then I find that belief, then you also don't, you have to um, create a different belief and sort of, just tell yourself over and over again, sort of like you're as a habit until that sort of settles in, which it doesn't seem to take that long if you can identify from at least different opinions on it. Once you identify the real issue seems to take longer.
Yeah, for a lot of people, just shedding the light on it, right? Seeing it, how it affects them, um, is like 50% there. However, it's like it's a little more nuanced than that because a lot of us come from or feel somehow, we're not quite worthy. And a lot of us been told forever, well, you just got to love yourself. Okay. You just love yourself and everything's going to be great. And it's like, well, thanks. Like, how do I, can you expand on that? Like, so, and if you've never felt unconditionally loved, or you don't even, that's not even in your frame, or like in your field, like it's really hard to find that. It's confusing, disorienting. And then a lot of people see that as like, oh, well, I just paid somebody this money, for a therapy, and they told me I need to love myself, and I must really suck because I can't seem to bridge that and love myself now, right? When you're like in theta, what we do, or what I do, is when we get to that final belief, like I'm not worthy, or then I look in and I start to kind of see, and this is quite remarkable, right? Once because part of the inner purification, your other gifts enhance, right? Because as a reader, if you have a really, I'm going on a tangent, but I'll promise I'll tie it back in. So, I remember going to a reader one time about a romantic question, and she was very, very negative about like, oh, this guy sucks. He's just a blah, blah, blah. He's just, so obviously this person was coming from, some very serious thought forms and beliefs about men.
Right.
Right. It was skewing her ability to perceive, and read for me accurately. It was like,
Right.
oh, I'm just going to, infuse my opinion, totally subconsciously, right? She was thinking she was helping me. So, like the same way, you want to, so for example, when I go in and I'm able to kind of, let's say I want to pull that program, and I'll always say, replace it with a creator's perfect program, because you don't want to assume that you know what the perfect program is for that person.
Oh, sure.
So when you go into their field to pull it and replace it and witness it, because again, we live in a planet, or in our program, that things have to be witnessed, right? Like we all know the famous experiment, like the, what is it called again? The line or the dot, is a famous experiment, but basically they realized like only reality exists when observed.
Right.
So we follow those principles. I witness it, and then sometimes I will see the person not being able to accept the change. They're deeply uncomfortable with it. They run away, or however I see it, in my mind. And then I have to, what I call, cushion them. I say, okay, so this person, it's unsafe for them to have that change because they don't even know what it feels like to be loved or to be accepted. So then I start downloading feelings. And I know it sounds really weird, but it's almost like, because we're all kind of like these computer programs. So I know what it feels like to receive love, and sometimes people won't even accept that. So I'll have to, I'm going to expand my capacity. I'm just going to open the door a little bit and try it on. Right. So that's why these processes sometimes take some time, because people are clinging to the beliefs and programs that help them survive so far. Right.
Yeah.
And they don't want to be vulnerable.
Right.
So you have to kind of really gently go in. And sometimes, after about an hour and a half of this work, people are saturated too. They're like, please go away. I'm like, it's too much.
Right.
And you have to let them have a sleep cycle, drink some water, and then come back and resume the work. But ultimately, with enough padding, with enough conversation, you can slowly start to change that program, and they'll start to feel like they can embrace it, and it'll start to show up in their lives. And it's very gradual. It's not like this dramatic thing for most people. Sometimes it's about a month or so worth of work, and suddenly they wake up and they're like, oh, I'm feeling a lightness, or I'm attracting different experiences.
Right. It's an interesting, and I don't know what to make completely of what you were saying about when I haven't had the experience of something. And it is part of some people's view of visualization, is that you're supposed to imagine that you have it and you feel it. And I said, well, if I've never had that experience of whatever it is, how can I honestly feel it? And I have mixed opinions based on Kabbalah. Maybe there are new experiences and feelings we're meant to just be open to, and having that sense of the full in the tarot, that curiosity, being open to just different, like kids are very open to, and that's why they get in trouble. They'll touch a hot stove and, things like that. And I'm wondering if it can be kind of a mix of both, because maybe because I'm a Cancerian, you're also a Cancer. I like, as hard as it's been, I like the fact that I've had all kinds of different feelings and experiences and levels of feelings. And I sort of categorize them. This is like a really intense, this is like so, and I said, but that's my life, like learning new experiences and feelings. And I don't want to necessarily know them all or feel them all ahead of time. So I don't know. I'm kind of mixed about that.
Well, I mean, the people that usually do come to me, right, as clients, usually there is some burning thing they want to change, right? If they were more, in that state of like openness and just like, oh, I'm just interested in the adventure of life, they probably wouldn't feel the need, for shifts, because they had their own, you have your own process and stuff like that.
Right.
Usually when something is painful, right, or you've been trying to create something in your life and it's not working, is when you finally go to a healer for that thing to sort of start opening the door for you and stuff.
That
So
makes
you probably,
sense. Yeah.
yeah,
That they're coming there because they have something they really want. They do want to shift it.
yeah.
Now, there was a couple other things you said in the beginning that I would like to ask you about too, about how you work with reality shifting. You talked about the inner compass as part of the process. And also the second part, you talked about healing, but also energizing. So maybe you kind of covered that indirectly, but I don't know if you had something more you wanted to say
Yeah, no,
about
I
that.
do have a little something. So it's a whole different category. So in energizing, so a lot of times people are pretty depleted, right? Even after because they're, whatever beliefs they've had, sometimes people, because traumas and anxieties are very like they suck energy from people. That's why you see people so exhausted a lot of times, because it's almost like trying to manage their stress, and then sometimes they'll even start drinking and like a couple of glasses of wine, right? Not that, sometimes it's a choice. I just want to have a good time. Sometimes it's an escape for some people.
Sure.
So, so they're depleted, and the physical body at this point needs some support for them to step into like a more optimal reality. So that's where energizing and healing comes in. And under those categories in the course, that I offer, or my, particular perspective, I choose like crystals. Crystals can be wonderfully energizing, right?
Mm.
But again, they're more nuanced, right? Because you can make mistakes with that too, because they're pretty strong.
Mm.
And if you use like I remember getting an orange citrine. I was at the Bodhi tree, got an orange citrine. Somebody told me it was great for money. So I put it in my wallet. I'm like, yay, it's going to work. Right. Cleaned up my wallet. Like, never had money in it. Right. But because I'm a good little Cancerian, I'm like, I'm going to just keep, doing it. Right. Took me years, and until I finally learned that they're actually like obstacle, they dissolve obstacles on your way to success, or whatever. Like Ganesh, you see him in
Right.
orange, right? They're not going to pull money in. So you can use it the wrong way. You can get like real partial information and then just really, mess yourself up. So crystals, but they need to be cleaned properly, energized properly, but
Right.
they can get a lot of energy in. I think feng shui. I mean, I'm not an expert in all these things. I
Right.
hire somebody who's an expert who teaches, in my course, but, because these energies, again, they're invisible to the eye, but they do exist, and they can, wrong positions, can, um, sort of like deplete you in your own home, right? As
Sure.
opposed to
Sure. I mean, that's why
energize.
sometimes spring cleaning alone helps. Even the simple
Yeah.
thing like that can be useful.
Yeah. And then finally, color therapy. And I love color therapy.
Ah,
Color therapy is amazing. I learned it from this incredible man, Dr. Stephen Ross. He has a library in Sedona, and he's been collecting over the last century. I mean, he's not that old, but from the right horse telescope to all these things, he's been collecting these wonderful healing modalities and things that a lot of them have been actually very suppressed. And so he taught my course, and I have a recording of it, how to implement color therapy.
Mm,
Amazing, amazing. I have a Chihuahua, the one that was just making a little, scuffle here.
right.
He has an enlarged heart, right? And I gave him the whole enlarged heart color therapy protocol. And it takes a little while. It's like a whole 6-week protocol daily, but the vet is amazed. He decreased his medication.
I love that,
It's powerful stuff, right? So we sometimes we need those things just as much as cleaning. For a lot of people, just the inner purification is enough. They find their way. They just want to clean the block. Suddenly they just download, oh, this is what I really want. I have greater ease in manifesting. Thank you, I'm done, I'm good, right? Other people need, they have some health conditions. They need some more support to pull energy in and heal. So that would be the energizing and healing component. And then the compass.
Before you go on to
is-
that, I had a comment Michael made about the color, that Aleister Crowley was also big on colors having a big impact. And that's why they are so particular with the colors on the tarot deck. In fact, I think most of the Kabbalistic tarot decks are very particular because the colors invoke the different worlds. And if you want to work Kabbalistically with tarot, that it's good to have a deck that at least has some knowledge of it. And the other thing I wanted to mention that was fun, I do remember in the 90s when it was really popular to have colored bath. Like everybody was doing it. I don't know, maybe it wasn't in the New York area, New York State. We all got these little packages and we'd have red baths or blue baths. And I think that color therapy is probably way more profound, like you're saying, than most people realize. Even just little things we do, we notice certain colors, how they positively and negatively affect us. So I think that's a really cool modality. Before you go on to the next part, I wanted to mention that.
And I would really highly recommend, to look up Dr. Stephen Ross in Sedona, to look up color therapy. As a matter of fact, this, again, I don't have any affiliate links to this. I just really believe in this. This is the book.
Let There Be Light. Okay.
Yeah, by Darius Dinshaw. This is the son of Dr. Dinshaw, or who sort of created this whole thing. I mean, he was pretty, FDA kind of sued him to oblivion, but the work does survive.
Well, that's good.
By kids, yeah. So if you can get your hands on it, it's wonderful. Really,
great.
life changing. Yeah, so this would be under that category, and I really agree with you. I think the properties of colors are powerful, and they should get more recognition and respect and acknowledgement. And then the compass one is where the divination comes in, right? Divination comes in. So we have like tarot and also dream interpretation in the compass area. So, and I find that to be really invaluable. I learned dreams from a gentleman named Michael Sheridan. He's Irish. He's an incredible dream interpreter. And something I was always interested in, and coming from Croatia, there's always some old wives book, like somebody grandma wrote a book and it was like, and it made no sense. And you read it and you're like, this doesn't make sense, but it's fun. It's like you're having Turkish coffee with your friends and you're like, oh, did you dream of like the alligator? Oh my God, So it was like fun, right? But it wasn't helpful to anybody and not very accurate, right? In short. So when I finally learned the language of dreams, it was life changing. And I think it's really important for us to, again, after we, do our inner purification, so we can receive downloads and receive like what the divine wants to share with us, like clearly. Right?
Sure.
It's so good. And I find tarot cards are also so important. Again, if your instrument is cleared out and you can, you hold a space of love, you can get incredible accurate results. And I think the tarot cards can be used in a really great positive way if you ask it in an empowering way. Like, for example, when you're trying to make a decision, Michael is the one who taught me this, or I observed with him. Like I would come to him, I'd say, oh my gosh, I have to make this decision. I'm kind of really confounded. And he'd say, okay. So we just do pile A, 3 cards here, 3 cards there. And then we see with relative ease, which direction works best.
Yes.
Right? So,
yeah, the decision thing, I started using that for myself for real basic things, the last couple of years, because I've felt I could be more objective, and it is a really, really good tool for that. And we obviously love the tarot too. And I've been working with dreams most of my life. One of the interesting things I learned from the Eckankar people is it seems like they only work with the spiritual aspect of dreaming. Like that's a big part of who they are from what I read. And one of the things that was really interesting that was accurate is they said you could assess accurately if you were progressing spiritually. And I had never thought of that. And so I was working really hard. I think I told you earlier for the show, I was drinking 2 glasses of wine a night, and I'd given up on working on myself. But then I went back to working on myself. And after a while, it was a while, I had this amazing dream. And I thought, oh, good, I'm making progress. But then about 2 months later, I was going back into some old inner habits, and I had this dream that my mouth was sewn up. And it was very humorous, though. I didn't feel like I was shaming myself in the dream, and it made me go, okay, I'm going backwards a little. Let me just, And I found it was really true that I could say, okay, this time I really was moving forward. Now I'm going backwards. And they said usually it's immediate. Like it was those kind of dreams are usually like right away instead of, how you can have precognitive dreams for the next 5 years ahead. And so I found that you're right about dreams, but they also seem to have different values, different dreams. And that's what's also cool about them.
Oh, amazing. Amazing. They can warn you of health conditions like years and years before, they become diagnosable, right? They can warn you of like, they can give you your spiritual gifts, like what exactly you're gifted, your guides appear in your dreams. There's just such a wealth, like once you really, see it for what it is and stuff. And then the tarot. So this would be in the what I would categorize under compass, right? Like this is kind of where okay, so I'm on the right track, or can see, calibrate or my potential future if I go this direction or that direction, right? So there's tools for that.
Right. And there, some people do have trouble remembering their dreams. And do you have sort of like, there's different advice for that? Do you have advice for that when people are having initially difficult recalling their dreams?
Yeah, well, the first thing is some people, if they take allergy meds or certain meds, or like Ambiens or whatever, sometimes it will kind of erase their dreams, or they won't be able to access them cognitively. Different people have different reactions. Some people take allergy meds and they're fine, they're dream well. So you have to, we're all not the same. So I always question that. What are you taking? Any sleep aids or anything? And then other people have actively suppressed their dreams because they've had such nightmares. So they're like, oh, I don't want to, So you have to kind of slowly open that door for them and help them. And then finally, it's just a matter of habit. So I always advise, if everything else has been eliminated, I say, okay, 1, drink some water before you go to bed. You will wake up.
That's true.
And ask, your guides, your higher power to help you recall. You want to get some help. And then what I do is I keep my phone there. And I know some people say that's like the worst thing ever, but and I'll just go to my notes and press record, a little microphone, and I'll just kind of dictate my dream in there. Because if you're like, I'll remember, you probably won't remember.
Right.
Like they'll evaporate like a cloud. So you want to kind of write a few key words if you have a notebook or something, or dictate, so you can remind yourself, and then the memories will flood in. And then it's like a muscle. You start to get better and better at it.
Sure, absolutely. So I did want to have a little bit of time. We're getting closer to just a couple, like 10 minutes.
Oh my gosh, really? Like what happened?
So I wanted to talk about the leap. So I love the idea of the leap. So let me move to the leap, and what do you want to share with us about the leap? And you said it sounds like not everyone needs the leap, but the ones that do need the leap.
So this is for people that are really like, I want to materialize this, or I want to step into another reality, and I know kind of where I want to step into. And you've cleaned yourself out, right? So that's in the course, we teach that this is like a 6.5 month course. So like the very last half month is where we teach this, because we want to make sure you're ready. And Cynthia Sue Larson, remember I mentioned her earlier, is the one who kind of taught me this, or I learned this from her, because she teaches a meditation. She gives you a meditation. She really takes you under and helps pump you up, where you call that reality in. So the interesting thing is, and if you get into your kind of that state, and as you are calling that in that you want, if it's hard to, if you're not able to grasp it, or it doesn't come to you easily in your imagination, right, visually, it's probably still some obstacles there, or maybe it's not meant for you, right? Maybe it's just somehow it's not going to materialize. And this is always true. I don't know how this is, right? Like, I think this is how incredibly well we're plugged into the field. If it's accessible to you and comes to your imagination with ease, and you see it happen, you're pretty much close. You just have to kind of bridge it. So what Cynthia does, after you see it, you're able to visualize it with some ease, then she takes you through kind of pumping the energy up. And the way that she described this to me is like every jump or shift requires a certain amount of energy. Like, we live in an energetically transactional world, our reality. So it takes a certain amount of energy to bump you up from, if you're here, like in terms of, this is my comfort level of how much joy I'm going to accept, how much love I'm going to accept, how much money I'm going to accept, and I want to bump up to a higher level, right? You'll need to be able to increase your capacity for sustaining a greater amount of energy, right? And you need to be able to take it in. So she takes you through that meditation where she pumps the energy until you can pop in, right? And I know it sounds really metaphysical, but it's truth, right? Like, so, and I've asked her once, because I've seen her do this before. So I finally said, look, Cynthia, is this a one-off, or how? She goes, no, this, if you're dedicated to jumping, she calls it like the quantum jump or whatever, you have to do this daily, right? So the work is, I think I did a pretty good job of kind of giving people steps. Like, it's, you really want to clear out the stuff that's depleting you, recalibrate your beliefs, like the things that are going to create the life, the reality you want, they're going to pull it in, and then be able to get comfortable taking in more energy, right? And going up that scale of vibration, some people say it that way. And then you keep pulling it in with detachment, right? Daily meditation until you can pop in, and it will seem, all of a sudden it'll pop into your field. That's the best way.
It's very similar to what I read years ago, and I don't remember things very well, but I remember this, The Holographic Universe by Michael Talbot. He is talking about parallel worlds, and he mentions the holographic leap, which I love that. I was like, oh my God, that is the coolest thing ever. But he does talk about it needing energy. But in this case, he was saying leaping into a literal different reality. And I'm one of these people, I think we have these superhuman powers that we just haven't, been able to use yet. We don't know how to use it. And so I thought, well, that's such a neat idea. And I thought, well, why can't I do that now? Can't I shift into a different world where Donald Trump isn't president? And I mean, theoretically, that's true. And that I've thought about that a lot. I've thought about, why am I focused on this reality? What is so important that my main focus, at least it seems like my main focus consciously, is this particular reality? And I don't have an answer, but there must be a reason. There must be a particular thing I'm focused on. So.
You got, the key is focus, right? So even if you are focusing on something, even in a negative way, like, oh my gosh, this person sucks so much, right? You're still giving them a lot of energy, right? You're still focused there. So it's going to keep you, like sitting in that reality. So you got to really take that energy away, because you think like, we're feeding the beast in some way, right? So take the energy out. You know what? It's life is an adventure. There's going to be crazy stuff. We're signed up for this journey, right? We're all one, right? I'm sending love to everybody, right? Then you unhook, right? You unhook, and then you're ripe for a jump.
It's true, the focus. I have noticed that a lot. And it seems like focus means that your attention's there a lot. Like, you're not just, like, you can have a random horrible thought and it's not going to affect anybody. I don't know. Some people think you can't even have that. It's like, really? Meditate for a while. You'll see all the random thoughts you have.
Yeah, we all have it. Yeah. And they're not even ours. Like 80% of the time, we pick up like, wow, why am I thinking that? It's like your neighbor, you know?
Well, that's an interesting point too, in that concept of reality shifting. it sounds like then you'd have to be able to also realize what is really yours and what you're just absorbing from your environment.
Yeah, there is a way to do that, because that is so. One thing is like it's easier once you're energized. So the more meditation you do, the more physical exercise you do, the more you cultivate thoughts that serve you, right? That like create the reality you want. Your field becomes bigger. You know, the more inner purification you do, like you get out of like you any victim mindset, any like blame, shame. Nope, I'm great. Everybody else is doing their best, right? Your field gets bigger and that stuff starts to bounce off of you. Your field is too strong,
Mhm.
right? But sometimes, we're all human. We're going to have a down day. Maybe your partner's the one, like, because we are open to our partners, even if we are ordinarily very strong energetically, right? You want to just take a moment and just say, is this mine? Is this mine? Right? And if it lightens a little bit, right? Then it's totally not yours, right? I try not to. Some people say, send it back to sender, send it back. But I'll go, well, you have to kind of also embrace mercy, right? If that person is in pain, right? If they're in such worry that they're shaking it off on you, right? You as a healer have sponged it up.
Right.
Don't send it back to them. They obviously can't handle it. Send it to the creator,
Mm.
like to transform it.
Yeah, that way it's being transformed very positively. We have
Yeah.
another question earlier about Cynthia I almost missed, and the person wants to know if she works with Kriya Yoga.
I don't know. I don't think so. I haven't heard her mention it.
Okay.
But I think she has a website. I forget. I think it's realityshifting.com, or I know she's written a book on reality shifting, actually.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Now, before I forget, how do people reach you? Is it your website the best place to contact you and find out
Yeah.
more about you, or if they want to work with you?
NatashaSenkovich.net. That's my site. And if you want to look at the course, that I've been referring to throughout this episode, it's natashasenkovich.net/reality-shifting. Or you can send me a message through my website and say, ask me and
Sure.
I'll give you the link. And if, it's still not too late, if somebody wants to join the course, if they're like, I like this, I've seen the whole thing, I will catch you up on it. So you don't feel like, yeah, we've already 3 sessions in there, but it's a 6.5-month course. So we've got plenty of time.
Oh, cool. Yeah, and we'll post the link to your website on our Sixth Sense Society. We put all of our guest contacts so people can go to our Sixth Sense Society website and you'll see Natasha Senkovich and you'll see her website and click there as well. So it'll make it easy for people, of course. So is there any last sort of comment you wanted to make about this concept or your own experience with working with it that you'd like to share with the audience?
Gosh, yeah, I just want to say like that, that if there's something that's frustrating you, in your life, like if you feel like, kind of almost in that resignation or frustration, like not to think that you're stuck, because one of the things I'm feeling a lot of people feel a little victimized by life, by powers that be, by, and it's disempowering to think that, to watch the news, and it's very disempowering, and it takes you to a form of like, oh, I'm just, where's my bottle? I'm just gonna have a little drink to help me process all this crap that's happening in the world, right? To take your energy out of that, right? And to really go, well, what else is possible for me? What can I, who's actually doing really well? Like what are they looking at? What are they inviting? Because we're incredibly powerful, right? We can, move worlds collectively. We can stop disasters from happening.
Yeah, I think
Definitely.
that's very good advice, actually. And I think it's necessary to, like you said, to kind of pull out and see where you sort of fit into the whole thing.
Yeah, and you're never stuck. And it's just what I see it kind of like a vortex, right? So I think there's like an upward triangle and a downward one, right? And we need them both, right? We need to
Right.
be grounded, but we need to have our upper chakras connected too. So, but if you go too dense
Yeah.
into, oh my God, everything sucks, your vibration becomes so thick that you won't be able to even access like anything, a thought that could make you feel better, or a solution, or like the filters will be so dark that you won't see the people that can be helpful to you.
Yes. Well, we are running out of time. So thank you again, Natasha, so much for joining. And Join us next time as we continue to explore the esoteric and the obscure together. Have a magical week.